like the AGM reactor we have on campus, you would be inserting rods to start up the reactivity. PWR, I believe you do insert some fuel source to start up reactivity, and not just remove later on.
Folks, I'm going to step out for just a second, but we'll get started on time.
So, you're technically not inserting reactivity, but you are pulling away negative. So if that's what she means, you just have to
negative, you gotta consider it, right? No, you don't.
you remove poisons from the
Remove
system.
the poison. Okay, I'm still a little fuzzy on that one, but, all right, well, I don't want to, this one I will attack after I'm done with this one. So I've gotten to,
When I read the GOP, I'll remove it again.
okay, in the Robert's book, it has this question, then it flat stops. There's no answer, there's no nothing, it goes on to another whole situation, so I'm like, how am I supposed to answer that
What's
one?
the critical and the strong overall the operator to significant change of conflict while we draw the curve to the real rod. Next rod to the release. Next rod to the in the center of the core choice. Little change multiplication. Is this abnormal condition?
I don't think it's abnormal, because one's gonna affect the other.
So the counter would go up and show that it's went up quite a bit if the rod that they're removing is closest to the counter device. So as you remove that, it's gonna look like there's a whole lot more going on one side than the other. It's like when we did that little guide earlier in the semester. You know, that's when you do your design, you have them all equally fleshed out. When you would draw one, your counter is kind of spiked up because it's not close in that area anymore. So the neutrons are able to keep flying towards the counter.
Right, I can come up with something for that then.
The next rod we move in the center of the core shield origin, kind of the same idea, because it's close to the center of the core. Your counter device are usually on the outside area of the core.
So it can't really tell you exactly how many really just said.
It's going to tell you a little bit about that, but you're really thinking about the neutrons that are avoiding the moderation and, you know, kind of like your escape resonance and whatnot. Thing where they're going past and get a moderation, potentially getting a reflector and going back.
So we get out of that.
Potentially leaking out. Then, you know, the reflector reflects back in, or back in. So when you're really close to the center of the core and you do something, it's not going to reflect it super high, because you're not going to reflect high. I guess it's a bit what
I'll come up with something, I'll ponder something on that idea.
I would double check to make sure that that key rod is near that outside area.
Can you read what I have here and see what else I need to add, answer if anything?
During operation, we offered training tries to withdraw all gates to chin and regulate the rods at once at the fastest withdrawal speed while we revise the software to launch and track. And run the reactor this way for safety limits and electricity. How they just type of operator behavior. At first, if the procedure doesn't say about the second, yeah, you damage your fuel, you allow the fuel to get too hot. Third parameter, control causes stop this action. So one thing that happens is if you have a drastic change in your rod withdrawals, you might have to get a spike in your current or the power being produced within the reactor. And so your gauges have this counter, it's like times 1, times 10, times 100, times 1,000, times a million for your watts. When that spike's out of its range, like plus or minus like 10, it's stranded reactor. And so
So those are the gauges that are gauges, or what kind of gauges?
I don't remember the name of the gauge, I basically just check your water.
Okay, the gauges that check your water.
There's a certain, did you call that parameter or something, I can't remember that.
If it senses it's like,
Yeah, if it goes out of its range, out of the range or something like that. Another one would be,
out of its range. For parameters.
yeah, damage to the core, or if you have a polyester, safety, really, it's going from critical, supercritical, extremely fast, when you first start your reactor, it's very poison, so it takes a lot more time to start producing reactivity, but say you jerk off your rod super quick, what happens is you flood those neutrons, then the odds of neutrons to thermalize to really thermal utilization shoots up, because you just have way more of a mass. And so you're gonna get more criticalities as this happens, or as this occurs. And so even though you're slow, it's like, I don't know, it's,
There's a reason I took English.
well, it's like, no matter what you do, you throw up something at it, it's, let's say the movie's really slow and you speed it up times 10, you're gonna finish up with this significantly faster, it's gonna stay significantly faster. So we get the criticality at that end of that movie, you're gonna get that so much faster than you expect. Then,
Yeah, you're ready for it.
let's say the credits are like already fast forward, now they're gonna be fast forward to multiplication factor 10. So they're gonna be 10 times faster, and maybe there's 2 or 3 times faster, and then
Okay,
that's something.
I'm gonna pull you guys back in. So, a couple of things I just want to start with. I do want to apologize that I did not get the question list updated for today. So there was this question of, well, what questions are available for today as opposed to Monday or Tuesday? So I am sorry about that. I will work on that in the future. So my goal today is, I have felt really bad that in the last couple of class sessions when we've had videos, we haven't had a chance to talk. So I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that there is time to discuss and debate today. So I really want to kind of just jump in so that we can pound through today and give you guys some time to discuss. Before I get started though, can everybody online see the screen? Is it fairly visible now?
Yep.
So you can, so this way everybody can see who's about to come up, plus the questions. I didn't really think about the fact that that wasn't as clear as it needed to be, so I've gotten that taken care of, and I'll do this from now on. So, so having said that, does anybody have anything they want to talk about before we get class started today? Any questions, concerns? Okay, Zach, you're going to lead us out today.
All right, so let's go with number 20. Which of the following is the section of the Federal False Claims Act that allows private persons to file lawsuits for violations of the act on behalf of the government, as well as for themselves, and so receive of any penalty imposed? So that's going to be C, the qui tam provision.
Okay. All right. Why is this a big deal? Where does this come into play, Zach?
So it's really, it's a powerful way for, I guess, just in general, whistleblowers to, help the government stop different kinds of fraud and recover money from like the U.S. Treasury, I guess even just the regular taxpayers.
Okay, yeah, one of the ideas with this is that one of the things that we have to accept that whistleblowing, while being a highly ethical act, is a highly ethical act with pretty common severe consequences, right? Most of the time, even with whistleblower protection laws in place, there can be a lot of negative consequences for somebody doing the ethical thing about reporting either illegal or unethical acts on the part of a company or individuals. One of the concepts of the Quiton provision is what? What does it do that would kind of help to address that?
Gives people whistleblowers kind of like an incentive to do it.
Exactly. The fact that they can receive a portion of the award that, if they do determine that there was illegal action taking place, and especially in false claims where money is attached, the fact that I can get paid for that increases the possibility that I would be willing to step forward and say something where if that money was not there, it could be very difficult for somebody to see the justification in doing the ethical or legal thing. Excellent. Okay, Jack, you're next.
Okay, I'll do number 14.
Number 14, got it.
So which of the following best describes illegal insider trading? And the answer to that is A, which is the buying or selling of stocks, bonds, or other investments on the basis of non-public info.
Okay, now we talked, this was a major chunk of this section. Why is this part of this is a legal question. So where does ethics come in? Because remember, there's a difference between legality and ethics.
Yeah,
So,
the biggest, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm asking you the question, so go for it.
Okay, yeah, the biggest issue is that the book puts it like it's cheating because you're basically taking information that not everybody's privy to, and you're going to use it for your own financial gain. Like one of the examples they give is the Texas mine, where a bunch of the employees, they knew that they had just hit a huge copper deposit. The company was about to explode, and that was kept secret from everybody else. But the employees went out and bought a bunch of stocks, and you kind of have to look at, well, that's completely unfair to the general populace. So that's why it's illegal and definitely unethical.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I had that done. All right, Megan, you're up.
Can I do number 8?
Number 8, absolutely.
Oh, sweet. So it says, which of the following is one of the most important ways to build a company's value, sell products and services, and expand corporate goodwill? And I put B, branding.
Okay, why is that the case?
Because I feel like branding is like all those things, like it's logos, it's taglines, it's intro marketing, and it just kind of covers all that.
Exactly. All of those other ones are parts of it, but it doesn't encompass the whole. Branding is the concept of identity. Perfect. Okay, Caden.
All right. Can I do number 18?
Number 18. Yes, you can.
All right. So it says, which of the following requires that an employee refrain from acting in a manner contrary to the employer's interest? And I said B, duty of loyalty.
Okay, so this gets tricky. My goal is to work, and because this was brought up in the readings, my goal is to work in the company's best interest, right? And so I have to, as an employee, judge what's in the company's best short-term interest and the company's long-term interest. And I have to be able to make those decisions on a constant basis, sometimes without having the time to be able to speak with a manager or to speak with the owner about my decision. Could somebody maybe give me an example of a time where working in a company's interest, the short-term versus long-term interest can be complicated? Does that make sense?
Would that maybe be like keeping the company's information private?
No, I don't think that that's going to be that's a duty of confidentiality.
Okay.
Okay, Sam?
I don't know if this is exactly what you're looking for. Let's say I'm working for a company like Tractor Supply and I'm selling a product. I know it's grossly mispriced compared to competitors. Short term, I can make that sale, then that customer can find out and feel like I have cheated them, or I can tell them across the street, they sell this, it's on sale and I'm much cheaper. On long term, they're gonna think, Tractor Supply, they care about the customers and I'm making profit right then and there.
That's a great example of, do I do the short-term sale, which brings money into the company, or do I send them someplace out because I'm looking at that customer relationship and strengthening that customer relationship is better for the company long-term? Okay, classic example, our department just had a breakfast and donuts thing for the faculty because we managed to survive midterms. Yes, we struggle with midterms as much as you do. Everything we ask you to do, we have to grade afterwards. So we went to Bilo's, which is just this little mom and pop shop down the street. We wanted to, as much as possible, use local vendors rather than conglomerates. So we went and bought 30 cartons of milk, just the little tiny half pint things you see at elementary schools that you used to think were so big, but now it's about 2 drinks worth. Okay. I showed up to pick them up. They gotten the order wrong and they gave us the full-size True Moo milk things. We paid maybe 30 cents for the half pint things, and they were giving us the True Moo, which is probably around $1.50, $1.75. And the guy says, we made a mistake, take the milk, go. And I looked at it and said, this isn't right. You guys are gonna take a major hit on giving us this milk because it's what we paid versus what we get was dramatically wrong. And they said, it's our mistake and we have to take responsibility for that. So let me ask you the question. Ethically, as the person receiving the milk, is it ethical for me to take that milk?
Say yes, sir. The thing is, they're 100% right. It's better to pay for a small mistake now than make a bigger mistake later after very consequences. So for my business, yeah, you're directly receiving the benefit of their mistake, but you're also helping them not make a mistake. So.
Okay, that is a very elegant argument. Anybody take the opposite side? Is it not ethical to take the milk?
I think I have something.
Okay, go for it.
If you take the values approach, what you valued was specifically going to those people and supporting them. So if you're taking that stuff, even though they want to give it to you, you're kind of contradicting the point of why you went there in the first place.
Excellent, Jackson. Yes, from a values perspective, if my purpose is to support local business and I'm shorting them $30 to $40 worth of product, that is not going to help them to stay in business. So ethically, it would not be ethical for me to take that milk at the price that they offered when I showed up to pick up the milk. Okay. Excellent. Anybody else want to make an argument? Anthony, I see you're up. Okay, Anthony's not up. He's just got a live mic. Okay, so what ended up happening was we picked up the milk and I was in a real hurry because it was about 5 to 8 and I was supposed to have the milk here by 8 o'clock. So I just grabbed the milk and ran and distributed it out. We had a great time. Everyone was really excited because it's good milk, adult sized and everything. And as soon as I was done, I went to my secretary and said, okay, I need you to call them back now that the owner is probably in, and I need you to get an invoice for the difference between the two. She called him, and the person that picked up the phone says, I'm sorry, but he's really busy right now, and I'm just going to tell you before you even talk to him, he's not going to take the money. It was his mind that if it was our mistake, we pay for it. So that's what she told me, and I said, okay. So I stopped by the business after work, walked up to him, and he says, we can't take your money. And I said, I'll arm wrestle you for it. Because just like what Jackson said, our purpose is in supporting local vendors. And if we're not paying full price, we're not supporting them the way we need to. He goes, well, I really don't feel like you need to. And I said, I want us to have a good working relationship. You did the right thing by giving me the milk rather than giving me a runaround. I need to do the right thing in return by paying you what we're owed, so that way we're both doing the right thing. Excellent example. Thank you very much. All right, Porter, you're up. Porter, going once. Porter, going twice. Okay, Winter.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Oh, okay. Can I do number 40?
Number 4, okay, say that, 40, 14, or 4?
40.
Okay. Yes, you can, go for it.
So what are some things an employee can do to contribute to a positive workplace atmosphere? What I wrote is having an open mind, treat others as you would want to be treated, be kind, positive, don't like blend into a negative like mindset. And then small acts of service can also be a good impact.
Okay, I'm going to be honest, your voice connection isn't great. I caught about the majority of what you said about treat others the way you would want to be treated, be kind, be positive, try to limit negative impact on the workplace. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and also have an open mind.
And having an open mind, okay? One of the biggest things that can affect a workplace, and it's a very, very common reality, is everything changes. And change can do more to destroy workplace morale than just about anything else. Even when that change is critical or necessary, it very rarely is easy. And so having that open mindset, having a willingness to trust that change is necessary, that change will work, that change will benefit, is critical for maintaining a positive workplace. Because the change is going to happen whether you want it, whether you want it to or not. The only thing that we can control is how we react to that. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Winter. Okay, Cattell, we're going to skip you. Logan, are you with us? Logan, going once. Logan, going twice. Okay, Scott.
Yes.
Okay, you're up.
Can I do number 15?
Number 15 is available. Go for it.
Okay. Which U.S. law prohibits bribery in international business dealings? And that one is D, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act.
Okay, I got to ask the question. Why is it necessary for the U.S. to have a, yes, I'll get right back to you, Zach. So why is it necessary for the U.S. to have a law that punishes people who bribe or interact in foreign countries? It's not the U.S. Why does the U.S. have the right to charge people that work in foreign companies or in foreign countries who are doing things that are considered normal, ethical, or even legal in those countries?
Because it could affect the U.S. economy and crash the economy.
Number one, it affects the local economy of the U.S. Excellent. Anybody else?
It protects, I mean,
guess it's sub to what he said, but it protects companies and company officials, doesn't it?
Okay, it establishes this policy that the US cannot bribe, or its representatives, as in businesses, cannot bribe. Because if it becomes common practice that I can bribe, then companies who don't want to will be forced to, because by making it a policy punishable by law that you cannot do it, it protects all US businesses from having to do that same thing. Okay, excellent. Zach, you said you'd had a question.
Yeah, so going back to what you were talking about the whole milk thing.
Yes.
So I worked at a hotel in the summer times, and
Okay.
there have been a couple times where we have been overbooked due to a glitch in the like Expedia or Hotels.com, something like that. So
Right.
so if we're overbooked and it's not really our fault, ethically, are we still supposed to supply the customer with another room at a different motel, or is the company who overbooked need to give them like free points or something like that? How would you?
That's a great question. What would you argue? What would you think?
Well, I personally feel like it should be up to the people who screwed up, but so like the website, but at the same time, we have had to cover, at least, I mean, not while I was working there, but before, I've heard stories like where we had to cover a couple people, but I never was sure how to really think about that, like ethically, I guess.
Okay. I'd be honest, a question like that is probably something you'd want to involve a manager or somebody who has sufficient authority where the decision they make would have to be honored. I would probably say, because I've been on both sides of this, I've been on the side where somebody comes in to get something that I cannot provide, and I have been on the side of, classic example, just about a year ago to the day, I had made reservations for my family to spend a week in downtown Seattle, which we realized very quickly was kind of the hot zone of the new Z virus that was going to destroy the world. So we had made reservations through Hotel.com with this kind of Airbnb type environment. Killer apartment 2 blocks away from Pikes Market, insane price, but I didn't realize when I made the reservations that if you did not cancel your reservations within 30 days, or no, within 24 hours of making them, there was no refund. I didn't read that part. Now, whose responsibility is that? And as frustrating as it was, I was willing to eat that entire reservation. Killed me, right? Because COVID was just starting to ratchet up. Costco was out of toilet paper. Everybody was freaking out. And I'm going, I'm out this huge amount of money. Eventually, the hotel contacted me back and said, we'll give you half of the price of what you did. And I'm going, okay. I mean, that's better than nothing. A little frustrated, but nevertheless. But I get back to what you're saying, Zach. I think the question is talking to your managers or management and getting a good sense of what do they see as their interest. Is their interest, for example, giving points or some type of reward or some type of compensation for people when you cannot accommodate them? I don't know any company that would say, tell you what, we don't have enough room, so we will pay to put you up in another hotel. Yeah, I think that's pushing it. But I can see somebody saying, look, we don't have the room that we told you we would have. We have another room that might be normally more expensive, and we'll just comp you the difference or something like that. Or we'll give you free nights that you can redeem at another visit because we can't help you right now. I can see something like that being acceptable.
Yeah, it comes down to like, you hold your employees responsible for something they do. By extension, this is still part of your business. You've made that contract, and, you know, you're responsible for contacting after doing yes. But you're the business owner, you reflect that I said I had this review. I failed to do that. And so you're pretty much saying, let's punish the customer for the mistake I made on my side.
Right.
If that has happened more than once, you're at fault to keep using that system. If you know it's broken, you have to be responsible and say, I keep making this mistake by working with this company. And even if it's in the best interest of your business, the other side is you can't have all the perks and none of the negatives.
But this situation, it's not their system.
It's a third-party system. They're making the reservation through Expedia or hotel. And I get, well, if I keep getting burned by hotel.com, I'm not gonna go there. But since the travel agency industry has basically, for the most part, disappeared, people are kind of now responsible for making their own travel arrangements. Travel agencies still exist, but for the most part, people make those reservations on their own. And so that's where some place like a hotel.com, which gets into the branding that Megan talked about, people do not, I don't go to the Best Western in the hotel or in the city that I'm going to go visit or stay at. I go to hotels.com because it makes it much easier. And so the company that Zach's talking about, it becomes very difficult to compete if I'm not using the same systems that drive all of the service that everybody else uses.
So, I get it after the first one, you know, it happens. How did they, so I guess this would be a question for him, how did they go forward and try and keep these third parties accountable? Or, you know what I mean? Is management getting all of these third parties and being like, hey, look, you guys are making mistakes. You need to be accountable for these things. We can't keep eating
all these extra reservations
because of the third party. So I feel like, again, going to the manager, once, you know, shame on me.
Yeah.
Second time, shame on
me. There's sometimes every time the manager would contact whatever company it would be. So let's use hotels.com. But there have been some cases where hotels.com would not necessarily take responsibility, almost like, I guess they really just didn't take responsibility. And my manager's like, well, it's not our fault. You guys screwed up. And then they're like, yeah, well, you know, they just kind of kept passing it down the line. And that's where it gets frustrating, because then the customer comes in. I was 16, just started my first job, working front, and I was, this lady came in, she was ticked off, and I had no idea what to do because I've never handled this situation. And she was like saying, oh yeah, you guys owe me this and that and the other, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, after kind of working there for a little bit, I know how to handle that situation. But at first, I mean, I had no idea what to do. And then after talking to my manager, it seemed like it was going in circles with the company. It was a weird situation.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing is, and I think this is where you get what the kind of summation for this would be, is if you're trying to show a duty of loyalty to your boss, that means you're trying to work in their best interest. Your best interest as the employee is to come to understand and know what they see as that duty. For example, so when that person comes in, how do you want me to handle this? What would you think as the manager or owner of the property? Okay, like you said, this is a third-party group that screwed this up, and we have zero control over doing there's no penalty or cost to them that you're going to be able to inflict as the front-end manager, you know, the desk manager. You know, you're standing there, the family's standing in front of you, they've been driving all day, they're exhausted, tired, and ready to reach over and rip your lungs out. How do you want me to treat that person? The person who's spending the money in the moment. I'll let you argue with hotels.com about what did or didn't happen later, But what do you want me to do with the person standing in front of me? Because my loyalty is to them because they are your customer. How do you want me to treat them? The more you spend trying to get a sense of what is expected of you from your managers, and what gets tricky is, if I'm working with manager A who tells me this, but then manager B is on shift tonight, I have to know what manager A wants, I have to know what manager B wants. And those are not always guaranteed to be the same thing, which is sad, but is very common. That's how I decide what the right thing to do is by making sure that I'm familiar with the goals of the company or the goals of the business, and that I understand how they want me to operate so that I can do that to the best of my ability. What's that?
Well, just like doing what you can.
But making sure you're doing it in the way that the manager or owner wants you to do it. That's all, that's the best that you can do. That's what they're gonna remember. Well, here's the thing, you may or may not, okay, based on what Zach just said, you may or may not be able to satisfy the customer the way they want to be satisfied. Okay? He just brought up the example of people who, if they don't have it exactly the way they want, they are gonna want A, B, C, D, E, you know, everything, anything and everything you can comp them. As long as you're satisfying your owner, they are the ones that own the premises, they are the ones that are paying your wage, they are the ones you have to satisfy. They will establish the pattern of how they want to deal with, how much are they gonna give a customer? That's not a call that you make unless they tell you, I give you power to satisfy every customer the way they want to become. And as long as you have a clear understanding from them of what they expect you to do, and that if you do something, you report back and you get feedback on your decision, and if they're satisfied with it, you keep going. If they're dissatisfied with it, you get clarification on how to act the next time. That is how you act as a loyal agent. That's the best recommendation I can give. Okay? All right, I think Billy is. What's that?
Solid answer.
Like the plumbing stuff, when the plumbers can't get to a job they've already agreed to, a lot of the time they know that it's a company and they send people that way, then that other company sends people back to them.
Yeah.
And it just builds a better community. You will always be able to get a reliable plumber.
Well, and because everybody knows when you're having a plumbing problem, it doesn't just go away. So it is, look, we can't service it, so we have a partner company that if they have available plumbers, they'll send it to you, because the most important thing is getting your plumbing problem in balance, taken care of, right? Because sewage does not wait for anybody. All right, so I think Kason, we're up to you.
Okay, is 44 available?
Number 44, let's see. Okay.
No, employees do not have the right to free speech in a workplace because the protection of freedom of speech is against government regulation only, not private businesses.
Okay, so this is a classic issue, and it's a big one, because people have this assumption that constitutionally guaranteed rights apply everywhere. And the truth of the matter is the specific language of the Constitution is a contract between who? Individuals and the federal government. Not individuals and the state government. That's why we have state constitutions. Okay? And it's not a guarantee of employees and their companies. This is a big deal because people get confused about this all the time. Yeah, and most people don't. And so, for example, I remember a case several years ago at Century High School where the assistant volleyball coach, there was a picture taken of the assistant volleyball coach with a whole bunch of kids at at a summer beach party, and her boyfriend, who happened to be somebody else in the school district, when they took the picture, he was being overly intimate with her in the picture. What's that?
Hotel High School.
Was it Pocatello? I thought it was Century, but okay.
It was my football coach.
Okay, it was his foot, okay. But yeah, so he had his hand on her boob. They took the picture, and there were high school students in the picture as well.
The coach was married.
And she got suspended.
He got fired.
And he got fired. And there was a major lawsuit because this was off contract, after hours, posted on their private social media page, but some parents complained about it.
She was the hotel basketball coach.
Okay, I thought it was the ball, okay.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I mean, the argument was.
They're married now though, with kids. So
Okay.
All worked out.
Well, but the thing was, is the big debate was, well, this is my private account, and it was private communication. What right does the school district have to get involved? The argument the school district made was, this was a school-sponsored activity because all of these kids are there who are on your teams in the picture when you guys are doing this. And we have a morality clause in our employment that says this is or is not appropriate. Now, in that particular case, guess what happened? They settled outside of court and she got paid a lot of money. But according to what we read today, could they have taken this to court? Yeah, and they probably would have won. So why would they settle?
It's cheaper not to go to court.
It's less cost, less likelihood of a negative result that could result in an even greater award, and the time and investment it takes to make that happen.
This lawyer cost.
The lawyer costs in and of itself, yeah. But the truth is, and this is an important thing to remember, just because you have freedom of speech in terms of expressing your ideas in the public setting, in terms of the government suppressing it, that right does not extend to your relationship with your employer.
You do have inalienable rights that even employers and private sectors can't void, like you can't become a slave in America. Laws prevented how many hours you could work, so on and so forth. Those are universal, and you're universally protected. You can't sign a contract that voids your right to be alive. You can't sign a word.
But basically what we're saying here is that because we work, for example, in right to work states, okay, this is one of those reasons why we talked about unions before. Unions would be able to stand up if somebody said, the employer fired me just because I said something they didn't like. The union could at least represent them and say, this is something you need to reconsider. But in a right to work state where we don't have as strong of a presence as that, we do at-will employment, which allows the employer to fire you if they so desire, and freedom of speech is not one of the things that would be protected in that kind of situation. Okay. All right. So I think we're at Tanner.
Yes, sir. Is number 37 still available?
Number 37 is.
Okay.
What's that?
So an employee's ethical obligation to keeping stuff confidential is like, that could be like whatever information he or she learns at a workplace, that could be something that like created that business. And so if they don't remain confidential, like they're ultimately destroying someone's livelihood.
Okay, so there's two different questions here. What's the difference? What is the difference between your legal duty to confidentiality and your ethical duty to confidentiality?
Your legal duty would be like if you signed like a non-compete form or some sort of contract.
Yes. Okay.
And your ethical one is just, could you live with yourself if you disclose something that you didn't sign a contract for.
Exactly. That is perfectly said, Tanner. The difference between your ethical duty to confidentiality and your legal one, your legal duty to confidentiality is which things are specifically articulated either in your contract or in other contracts that you sign with the company about things you will or will not disclose. And you are only bound to the letter of what those contracts express. And ethical duty says, knowing what this company does, knowing what they're interested in, what their interest is, what should I not share, even if they haven't said anything about it, what do I feel like I should not share to protect their interest with other people? Great way to describe it there, Tanner, thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Okay, Anthony, you're up.
I'm here. Here, 1 second. Let me. My computer doesn't show any highlighting things, so I might have to ask.
Yep, I get that. Yeah, I forgot to upload the marked copy after class on Tuesday.
Okay. Has number 35. Never mind. I already see it right there.
Okay, yeah.
I think I'm gonna do number 32.
32? Okay. That one's preemptively taken.
Shoot. Well,
joking. Tough luck, Kyle. All right, what you got, Anthony?
True or false? A good employee should care about the way he or she treats customers, and I put that it is true. For that business, like, okay, hold on, let me restart real quick. True. That is business for the company, and if the employee or employees treat customers poorly, then they lose business from that customer, and they're just going to go somewhere else to get the same goods and services. And if this action doesn't get handled properly and your employees just keep treating customers poorly, then eventually you're going to run out of customers and your company is going to go down.
That is true, okay? But from an ethical perspective, what responsibility or duty would suggest that number 32 is true? From what we read in the chapter, what's that?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. From an ethical perspective, what ethical standard tells us that this is true? You've made a logical argument, which is fantastic, but what would the ethical argument be?
The ethical argument? I mean,
Yep.
I guess you could say that the customer is always right, which is definitely, I mean, it's not true, but.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the ethical argument we would make.
Yeah, no. I do not know. I'm coming up blank here.
Okay? It is the duty of loyalty. It's what we've just been talking about, right? Our ethical responsibility exists in that the pay we receive, part of the expectation of what they're paying us for is to take the interest of their business as our interest.
So what you're saying is basically that you're the loyalty to the company?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, so the ethical standard is a good employee takes care of customers because they see that as an ethical duty to the company. Because they are paying me, part of what they're paying me for is to care about their company. And that, oh, am I being too loud? Okay. And so part of that is that I have to, therefore, do things the way they would want them done, which means we should care about how we treat our employees and our customers, because that's in the benefit of the business, and that's what they're paying me for. Okay, so for example, as a faculty member, part of what ISU is paying me for is to care whether you pass. Not just because it makes me look good, not just because it means it gets you guys out of here so they can get other people to come here and pay the money, but because as an institution of education, I have an interest in making sure you learn because I care about you as my customers. I hate talking about students that way, but in terms of this, I have to have emotional investment. I have to have ethical investment in your success. Okay? Now, if I was to be working in an incredibly physical job where I had to waste and wear my body in order to accomplish my job, I think, for example, of crab fishing, and the incredibly harsh environments in which they work and the incredibly physical work they do, I would say that a majority of their salary is about, you're paying me because I'm risking my body and I'm using my physical ability to get this job done. But to a small degree, part of their payment is, you represent our company, right? We need you to take as good a care of this crab as you can so that we can sell it at top price. Which is why I'm asking you to do the things you do in the conditions that you do to do it right, because the longer these crab live, the more like we're going to be able to make money, which benefits you as the worker. And it's because, man, they get paid the way they do because nobody else wants to do that job. If Deadliest Catch has cured me of anything, it's of well, it's only 2 weeks. I'm sure, yeah. Okay, let's see, Haley, you're up. Haley, are you there today? Going once, going twice. I know. All right, Jackson, you're up.
I wanted to do 33.
Okay, that one's available. Go for it.
Because it's asking, the statement is whistleblowers are protected and sometimes rewarded for their willingness to come forward, but they can still face a hostile environment in some situations. I said true, and I would almost switch some to most situations. Like because whistleblowers, sure, there are protections and they can get paid for coming forward and doing stuff like that, but I mean, companies don't want to have to pay for something without getting a benefit from it. They don't want to have to undergo anything like that.
Yes. I will be honest that I have every single movie that I've ever watched that has to do with labor or whistleblowing never ends well. Every time I watch this, it's like, and you would want to do this because, yes, Aaron Brockovich, maybe. But even that was a horrible example of what happens. But yeah, most of the time they are protected. They are rewarded. But those protections and rewards come because of the cost that tends to be extracted for having done what they did. All right, Josh, you're up.
I'd like to do number 11.
Number 11.
Everyone has different workplace personalities, which often express which of the following. I chose D, the way we think and act on the job.
Okay, so why is that significant or relevant to what we're talking about here?
Well, with the way we act in the workplace, it sort of presents who we are. With the freedom of speech not being in the workplace, if we conduct ourselves poorly, we could get fired for that. For the things we say, we'll be held responsible for that. When it comes to customer care, if we're treating our customers poorly, then and just acting rude towards them, it's going to reflect poorly for the company, and you may not have a job position after.
Okay, so how does this connect to ethics?
If you could ethically, if you could treat people horribly and live with that, to you, you're acting ethically, but to the company, that's just not how the company presents itself. If you're going to be racist towards people, that's unethical, and things along those lines.
Okay, so you're hitting on something there at the very end. Our ethic is to do what is best in the best interest of the company, right? If we're being paid for it. We have to weigh that with our own sense of self and our own personality. I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, but that's just who I am and you're going to have to take it or leave it. Okay, is that true in the world as a whole? It is, but people will pay the consequence for that behavior. If you are irritating, if you are problematic, there will be consequences that are attached to that. But you don't get to just cry victim over. At work, the workplace has the right to say, this is what you were saying, Josh, this is how you have to treat customers. And whether you're a cranky, not a morning person kind of person, doesn't matter if you work a morning job. If you're working customer service, like you said, and you're still tired and cranky because you stayed out partying too late the night before, even though your natural instinct is to be surly and angry, the business has the right to expect you to act in a certain way. Sam?
The idea that that's just the way I am actually meant something. There wouldn't be sexual harassment classes, there wouldn't be anger management classes. Like, that idea is just fundamentally wrong. If you have a problem, it gets fixed.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's the solution, saying that, because you put no effort into changing what people perceive as a problem. Like, yeah.
The difference between intent and reception. Just because you didn't intend it to be offensive doesn't mean that it wasn't received that way. And we cannot use intent to excuse impact. So just because I didn't mean to insult, if the person was insulted, that's the impact and the reaction that has to be addressed, not what I felt or what I meant by it. And that gets back to this and the ethics of, I have to act in a way so that I'm ready to receive the consequences to my actions. Okay, thanks, Josh. All right, Kyle, you're up.
Maybe 42.
42, just this once. Don't ask again. All right.
Is insider trading in securities an issue of ethics, law, or both? I said both, because it's against the law, like we've gone over. It's against the law to protect, like other companies and shareholders and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also an issue of ethics because it's using an upper hand to, for lack of a better word, screw over everybody else. So that's why I said it was bold.
Okay, no, I agree, because the law says that there are certain kinds of information that are considered insider.
That affects sales.
That affects sales and things like that. But there are other ways of knowing things that you shouldn't know that aren't legally affected, but that we understand if we understand the nature of insider trading, we recognize there are what we would consider extra legal or ethical boundaries of what is considered. Even though the law doesn't say I can't do it, ethically I know that I'm operating on information that other people don't.
Still could be wrong.
It would still be wrong, even if it's legal, it's still wrong. So insider trading is not just, we know that we hit this major copper vein and therefore this company is about to explode. It might also be, I found out that Hoku is going down, so I'm going to sell all my shares before that information comes out so I can get top dollar for it. And then everybody else gets hosed when Hoku says, you know what, we're not really coming here. Right?
Yeah.
And which definitely happened. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways that you can find out information about what's about to happen that might be legal but are unethical, and it impacts this as well. Okay? All right, Cattell, do you want to go with one?
I do, I have one left.
Okay.
Two left. Yay. Was 9?
Number 9.
Oh, wait.
Number 9 is available.
I can't get to that page, so we don't ask me too hard, but which of the following best describes information that has economic value because it is not generally known to the public and is kept secret by reasonable means? Trade secrets.
That's trade secrets.
On 200, I can't get to it.
Nope, that's absolutely correct. And so we have an obligation to do what with trade secrets as employees? To keep them to ourselves. So for example, even in the area of higher education, there are trade secrets. For example, the business technology program is about to submit a proposal to create a cloud computing certificate, partnering with Amazon to train you on Amazon Web Services so you can be a cloud technician. Okay? Now, this can be a highly lucrative field. On average, they're saying nationally you get paid $130,000 to be a cloud computing technician. Sounds fantastic, right? If Boise State or University of Idaho or College of Eastern Idaho or College of Western Idaho knew about this partnership plan, what could happen?
They won't do the same thing.
They might try to create the same program and try to get it set up before we could to try to steal all because the State Board of Education will limit who can teach what. A university just can't offer whatever class they want. They have to get permission and kind of stake a claim with the state board, which is what we're doing. We're in the process of writing a proposal to get permission from the state board to do this here. And if we get permission, it cuts off other people from doing the same thing. That's considered a trade secret. The reason I'm telling you is because it's not private information. But it kind of is. If somebody were to go to the College of Western Idaho and say, look, we can get this done even faster, we can cut ISU off at the knees and get this program. Yes.
Would that still be punishable, like if those public Pepsi thing?
What's that?
If those secrets were leaked and they did act on that, would that still be,
It's not the same thing as a company, as me going in and learning the process for creating a new product and then going to another business and selling it. It's not like me stealing the formula for Coke and then trying to sell it to Pepsi.
but if they had that program?
Then there would be really hard feelings between ISU and whoever.
Oh,
And we would probably try to cut them off at the knees in other ways.
interesting.
Yeah, you might think that higher ed is this very calm, boring place, but man, it's cutthroat as anybody else in a lot of ways. Okay, thank you, Cattell. All right, Andrew, do you want to answer one?
Sure, I'll just do number 10.
Okay, go for it.
So which of the following clauses most directly protects a business from an employee who leaves for another job and then attempts to lure customers or former colleagues into following them? And that is a non-solicitation clause.
This one gets ugly. Okay, why would this be so hard to enforce?
I would say it's probably for the same reason that the others are hard to enforce is the first thing that I think of is it seems very impersonable to me to like require employees to sign this right off because I've actually had experience with these. And so that's the first thing I think I would think of.
Okay.
The concern that I think about is like, unless it's like proven that you tried to solicit this, it could be said that, they saw that this person was leaving for something, or he knew it was for something better, and they left too. gonna be kind of hard to punish unless there's like a confession or something that was videoed or concrete evidence that this happened.
It's very hard to prove because in so many of these situations, those relationships that you've established with customers tend to be very personal.
Right.
They're friendships. He's my friend. I want to give him I want him to succeed. I want him to do well. The business, okay, but it's that person. If that person was to go someplace else, I'm following my friend, not the business. How can I prove that they solicited me to follow when I can just say, well, they weren't my friend. I made the choice.
Or you ask them like, why are you leaving?
Why are you leaving? Well, because I worked with this person. They know how I like things done. Yeah, excellent. All right, Sam, last one.
You have 43.
Number 43, making me go all the way to the end, huh? I see how it goes. Okay, go for it.
Are shareholders protected by federal law or with
Whistleblowers.
Yes, there are some federal, when you're talking about a whistleblower and you're talking about a federal employee, they do have federal protection. When you're talking about a whistleblower in a private corporation, they don't really, but they do. An example would be if I work for a company I own with OSHA, and by extension, I do have some protection against them. You know, lawsuits and other, not direct protection, but some form of protection. But unfortunately, for a lot of the whistleblowers, there's not a real protection. There's no guarantee that you'll be able to keep your job, or they won't find some excuse to fire you.
Right. So the idea of federal protection for whistleblowers is kind of limited. If you're a federal employee, there are federal laws that can protect you. If you are a private employee, but the violation is of federal statute or law, you can be protected by those federal statutes or laws. But if it's a private corporation and the violation is not a federal one, unless there is an equal state level law, there's very little they can do.
I'd be a good lawyer.
What's that?
That would be a really good lawyer.
Here's the problem. They normally have really good ones too, and they have a whole lot more money to spend on it.
Yeah, when I think of whistleblowing, when you think about it, you have to think how much money do you have in the bank? And how long can I survive without a job?
How long am I willing to put up? How much can I pay for this? Absolutely.
So like, when you think about whistleblowing, the thing is, you need to put yourself in a position where if you're ever found as your employer is putting you in a position of weakness, you have some standing to push against that. And I think that's one thing we don't do, or we don't learn about in school, is how to save money, how to put yourself in positions of power. For example, if I was working for a company, they didn't like what they did, but I lived paycheck to paycheck, I'm subservient to them at that point. They own my life, whereas if I have 100,000, 200,000 in my bank, I could survive without that job, which means I have a lot more control of my own life.
Okay, and this gets back to that concept of the difference between legality and ethics, right? Legality are the bottom fundamental basements or foundations upon which we act. Ethical standards are what we expect or what we ought to be doing. And so if we want to engage in ethical behavior, it tends to require us to live above and beyond what the law requires. And that can be a very difficult place to live unless I have a foundation in which to do that. In the old textbook that I used to use, there was an example of a guy who worked as a material engineer for Boeing. And they made the brake pads for some type of Air Force jet. The Air Force established that the brakes had to be able to withstand a certain temperature to be able to stop these jets. And this material engineer did everything he could with the available materials to try to create a brake pad that would meet those requirements. And he just couldn't do it. So he went to his boss and said, we can't do this. And the boss said, you don't understand. This Air Force contract is worth so much money. It's worth my time to go and bury you in the desert, kind of thing, to keep this contract if I had it. Now, I'm exaggerating. He didn't say that. But it was a pretty significant contract. So the boss told him to fudge the numbers and said, look, The truth of the matter is, these brakes will never be called upon to handle the tolerance that the Air Force has set. It is so far above what is realistic for these brake pads to experience, it doesn't matter. So just put your name on the report and say it's fine. Guy says, this isn't right, I'm gonna go to our boss, I can't do this. And the guy says, you can do whatever you want, but here's how much the contract is. The guy goes to the guy's manager who tells him essentially the same thing. At that point, he realized his job was in jeopardy, so he signed the reports. They sold the pads to the Air Force did their tests, and in 3 of the 4 tests, the brakes failed. Who do you think they went after? The material engineer, because his name was on the reports that said they could handle this. Luckily, nobody died in these tests. And life would have been even worse, right? So he goes to the federal government and the Air Force and says, here's exactly what happened. And they said, well, why didn't you say anything? And he says, I wanted to, but I had a mortgage. And I could say everything I want to about ethics, but I had to pay my mortgage. I had to buy formula and diapers for my kid. I had a wife to take care of, and I had to think of them first. And that gets right to what you're talking about. We can talk about ethics all we want. We can talk about all of this, but unless we are talking about the realities, and one of the things we've talked about with ethics is that ethical behavior is the behavior in which you are willing to accept the consequences for your actions. And so one of the things we talk about is whistleblowing. Can you realistically pay or accept the consequences for doing the right thing, even if it's going to ruin your life?
Wish you would have asked for another, bring in somebody so you can figure this out. I need maybe another person to help figure this out instead of doing what you did. I understand how you did what you did.
Yeah. Well, but this gets to, you guys are going to be in nuclear reactors. I need you to be willing to blow a whistle if you see things, because I can very quickly see what happens to me as a consumer and as a member of the environment should you not do so. Well, we
minimum and maximum, and we're always driven to be ethical maximum. That's what I love.
That's what we're talking. We hope that remains the case.
It has to.
Well, it has to, but we see examples throughout industries of when that wasn't the case. The massive mine disaster back in was it West Virginia or Virginia, where all the coal miners got trapped, and they came when they started to examine what happened. Massey had been fined like 162 times in the past year. They had 20 years worth of files and claims about how they were avoiding their responsibilities. But those coal miners went into the mine because I got to pay for my kids. I got to take care of my kids. They belong to a union. The union had records of them complaining about things. So then people started saying, well, why didn't the union do anything? And they said it's because we had to protect the interests of our miners and we didn't have the money to be able to afford strikes or other things that would have forced Massey to change. And then the coal miners are saying, well, so then why were we paying you dues if you weren't going to protect us in the way that was most fundamental? That's where all of this gets to. That's exactly why we're talking about it. Okay. All right, any more questions? Okay, so we are about to transition into our discussion. So what is our discussion topic for today?
School scamming you.
The school scamming you. I picked this one specifically because it was the University of Alabama and not Idaho State University. But you are in the unique position, many of you, if you haven't already, are taking a speech course. The university's communications and rhetoric department requires the purchase of an ISU branded speech text. So what you're experiencing is the same thing that we're talking about with the University of Alabama. This way I don't get in trouble for throwing ISU under the bus. It's a win. Okay, so I'm going to break you guys. So you guys are going to be in a group. And I'm gonna take everybody online and I'm gonna put them into groups. If I can put my glasses on so I can see. All right, so we've got, okay. So everybody has the option to join those classes. We've got about 7 to 10 minutes. Go for it. I need to go talk to Matt for just a minute, so I'll let you guys go. Yes.
Can I talk to you after the class is over?
Yeah, actually, why don't you let me, once class is over, click on, I'll reopen the class, so that way you and I can talk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna close it, but then come back on after class is over at about 2 o'clock, and then we can talk if that works for you.
Yeah, that works.
Perfect, all right, I'll see you then.
Yep, bye.
Never been able to see how many comments were.
You go to my comment, oh, it's either it's 7 and 3.
How many?
It used to, it doesn't do it anymore for me either. I just brought that up. It just doesn't do dates and stuff, but I think probably a good policy is do 7 and then 3 on the video. Well, again, you can go into my comments and see.
How many?
Yeah, that's each, that's just the comment feed. So you can go in there and that's the comment feed that you have commented on.
Okay.
Or started. So you can see how many you've done right there. It should be like 4, a list of like 7.
Lost count last night, so I hope I made it to 7, usually it's 7.
The thing with comments, my advice on that is just read and if anything catches your eye, make a comment on it. Like, you'll end up with 15, 20 comments.
I mean, I go page to page, comment on one page, skim through the rest, go to the next page, comment on one page, skim through the rest. Just because you said the system doesn't give you full credit if you comment too closely together.
Well,
or rob you points or something.
It's gonna pick your highest scores out of all your comments. And so if you have like 6 comments in one section, and those are your highest scores, that's what you're gonna get scored on. However, if you just go through and find interesting information and comment on that, or, like, the book says this is kind of how I interpret it, you're probably only gonna have 2 or 3 comments per page, but then you easily have enough comments to where you're getting full points. So this topic, dear to my heart.
Yeah, so can you guys pull up the template for on the side, pull up the template for how you're supposed to write the paper? We should just go through that real quick and be like, all right, what will we say for this? Boom, 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 boom. And then the rest of it we'll just elaborate on. So let's start with the first one, statement.
Summarize the ethical dilemma you see in the
So the ethical dilemma here is, what would you say? So I would think so. I'll say my opinion first, and then or you go first, and then tell me what you think the dilemma is, and we'll try and disagree or agree to disagree, or however we want to play that, I guess. But I'm using this as a tool for me because I suck at these, so I want to hear your
I
guys'
got 3 100s and they all dropped in, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I don't do very, I haven't scored anything over an 80, so. So, go ahead, you start.
The part I have a problem with is they're cheating out of being able to resell your book for any fun stuff.
I would agree. I was gonna say, the school is charging you extra money to fund things that aren't the student's responsibility to fund, as well as the student might, or is most likely not making the most money they could be because they are a student. And so these schools are capitalizing on the student, this low income person.
All the way around.
You're right. And then also is being put into funds that benefit programs independently, as well as teachers that are trying to excel. And the dilemma from you would be like, it's not the student's responsibility to be paying that.
I put that the school has designed ways, the school has designed a way to charge hidden fees to the students. That is my.
Okay, yeah, so.
Because it goes past just books. I brought up that the school charges the fee for the food. In order to be a housing student, you have to get a meal plan. That meal plan is based, the best deal you can get for the meal plan, you have to be a senior for it. Right? But even as a senior, you're still being very overcharged for the service you're providing. So that is a way in which they scam the students. This example is more upfront about it. Same idea of because that they're charging these hidden fees in the books that don't really have a student that's interested in it. The dilemma is it's best for the school but not for the population. So I would probably just end up arguing a utilitarian kind of argument in this case where it's like it's the best for one person, not the society as a whole. But what's really happening here, is so you get government grants to take the cost, right? A lot of these government grants say you have to buy books from the bookstore exclusively for this or that. And so the school knows that and they capitalize on that because let's say I get money for military, right? Military gives you X amount to go to school, to pay for your housing, to pay for your books. One of the things about the paying for your books is that you have to get the required text from that class at ISBN. And so because it's an exclusive ISBN, these military veterans, they don't really care, they're not paying out of pocket for it. So they're like, okay, I'm gonna just get it for the bookstore, because that's what they told they have to do. So the school knows that, they capitalize on that. You get federal grants for low income, right? You get money from the government says, okay, all this money has to go to the school. You have to buy the books from the school. So same idea, because there's, like me, I don't buy books unless I have to. Like, I'll go through the whole class, and if I need a book, I'll just borrow it or so on and so forth. That's just because I have a lot of college. I don't know
Could that be considered fiduciary because the school isn't using that money honestly?
No,
because the issue is they're a customer at that point, not somebody who's working for the student. So I just didn't know that would be able to be said.
No, the way that the school system is built, the school has a massive amount of protections against liability and litigation because they're not seen as an entity of business. Kind of like the federal government, they have an excessive amount of protections to themselves that aren't allotted to the students. For example, if I got COVID in campus and I could prove that, it wouldn't matter in court. I couldn't say the school is liable for essentially giving me COVID, although they are. And that's because they have these over-exaggerated protections that no other business or private entity has. Like if I slip and fall at school and I get injured, it doesn't matter, I'm still liable that I filled. Whereas if you came to my house and you slipped and fell, you could sue me.
So could you say that they are not fulfilling their duty of loyalty then?
They don't have a duty of loyalty. We're not customers in their eyes.
But we should be.
But you are at the point where you're buying books from the school.
Again, right now, we would be debating, well, their
Like he
business.
just said the same thing that Vince says, and he cares like the same way Vince says he cares.
But because they have to point it out that that's how they care about it, it shows that they're not seen as that. If I have to go out of my way to explain why I do something as I do, that means I'm going against what is standard practice. That makes sense. So the school doesn't see us as consumers or customers, we're seen as students, which is completely different things. So we have protections from adversity, different protections that you wouldn't regularly have in the workplace, such as disability protection. You know, this school cannot restrict me from applying for the program if I, let's say I was, had some form of mental handicap. Like, you know, I had Asperger's, it couldn't prevent me from enrolling in class, whereas if I ran a business, I could choose not to have someone with that form of disability.
Okay, so let's go into our solution. So you said utilitarian, right? We would take an approach of a utilitarianism. We would take a utilitarianism approach by.
The solution is there is no solution to, because we're taught in a system that is designed to restrict your rights or freedoms to go against it. You really can't produce a solution because that one's not really a law to you. You have no form of protection because you're not seen as a consumer. The only solution you would have is choose not to talk textbook until you could.
So I get that realistically. What is he gonna want? What kind of solution is he gonna want? Well, I think we should ask him, because I understand what you're saying, and I get that, and I understand. Is that gonna be the answer that he wants? So let's touch that. Okay, so, well, he's not gonna want that answer because the next three boxes are connected to your solution.
In one paragraph, identify one option for solving the dilemma. One option for solving the dilemma would be choose not to go to college. You know, if you don't like a business practice that a business is doing, choose not
Go
to.
to just a different college.
Well, all colleges happen. So what's happening, and I pointed this out in the video, is colleges are seeing this as an opportunity because they know that more of us are required to go to college to get a job to pay our bills. And so it's a system where you're stuck being compliant, and they're hoping that eventually it just becomes such a standard that no one's bothered by it anymore. It's like,
but I'm sure you could use, go to a cheaper school so you're not paying as much in these fees.
Well, and it's one class versus your whole career, or maybe what, however many times you have to go, you know, classes, or is that what you want or two?
you're talking
Or
about.
go to a trade, you could go to, yeah, you go to trade school, I guess.
But what you're debating is standard that is up and coming and gonna be realistically everywhere, such as the requirement you own a car to get work done. That, at first, you could choose to have a car or not, then you'd work somewhere close by. It's no longer an option realistically. You have to be able to drive, you have to be able to own a car to get to the point.
Right, kind of a different.
Same idea, there's.
Same idea, they're just not forcing you to buy a certain type of car to go to this job.
Well, not
Or
yet,
for me to buy a book.
but they are getting to the point where we will be forced to buy electric car or more.
I guess you
A
could say
good
that.
point about what you said, and I don't know, maybe you know more about that. When, if you're under any service that's providing some of your funds for you to be able to go to college, and you have to get those books and that IBM number, it is the same way with rehabilitation. I am under rehabilitation, they help me to go to school, I don't pay for all of it, they pay for a little portion that's not paid. And I have to get all of those books, whatever it is. And originally they said, you can get them wherever you want, but then with the way they pay, you're limited, which means basically the only place you go is the bookstore. They're like, oh, you can order them on Amazon, but you can't because you can't use vouchers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and my point being is, it's wrong, it's a system in which you can't really fight against it. And we've seen clear examples of this before. But no matter what solution you come up with, you're not going to be able to fight the powers that be. Because people make connections at college, they get into a position of power. Now you're not only trying to argue against the college or whoever's in power at the college, but you're also fighting against governors, senators.
But you're not gonna win, there's no fight there.
No, you could call injustice as injustice, but the issue is it doesn't do it.
It's not gonna change it.
And because this is.
I'm wondering what kind of answer do you think he would want? Let's go into that.
I'm gonna say exactly what I'm saying right now.
Are you? I think there's 3 other sections that would disagree.
I disagree with you.
Think so? I think he's gonna want something.
One option for solving the dilemma. I do not think there is an option that's applicable to this dilemma.
Okay,
The reason why
go to the next
is
question.
this. In one paragraph, describe what you think the likely outcome would be in the dilemma if you were to use this as first option. The outcome would be everyone would be forced to do exactly what they're doing right now, and that's complying with the rules and such regulations, because you don't have an option. In one paragraph, explain why you would be most comfortable, or as the book describes it, able to sleep at night if you're in pursuit.
See, but that's the thing, is that doesn't allow me to sleep at night. I know it doesn't allow you to sleep at night.
It doesn't matter, I'm not in a position.
And I get that,
anything
that's what brings me to this idea that I don't think that's gonna be acceptable for it.
You would have slipped away. I'm not the one making the wrong choices, I'm not the one that's in a
I
position
get
of power,
that,
or a position.
but we're
of
talking
power.
about hypothetically, like,
This is not a dilemma like you saw by an individual or an individual approach. This is a widespread dilemma that has been caused by lack of government enforcement.
again, I understand that, again.
Did you
But-
guys get in the cup today?
Nope.
No, do you guys want to go do it?
I was gonna go to it.
I'll go do it.
Alright, I got, because we only have 7 minutes to get there, I think they close at
2:30.
Oh, is it 2:30?
That's what she just said. I don't know.
I refuse to spit in the cup.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot about that.
I respect you for that too. I just don't want any trouble, I'm just trying to go to school and be the hell out of here, but if they go in, oh, good, I have some issues.
What's your exemption? You better tell Christie your exemption.
Oh my
I
hell.
don't have no obligation to tell anybody. If there's a thing, tell me.
Oh, yeah, I'll check your email. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this morning, did you see that? And another incompetency of hers, but I get it.
Hey, that's your
After
friend,
8
that's
o'clock?
your friend.
After 8 o'clock? Really? I'm like, I didn't even come to school today because we didn't need to be here.
Highly irritated.
Actually, do
Highly
not email me when you have completed this.
Assuming that you have to.
I'm not gonna email her.
Wait,
squawk.
read the bottom of it.
Just make sure that you complete the screening unless you have an exemption. They're open at 8:30.
Sam's exemption is none of your goddamn business.
It's not. When they want to pay me a wage to do this kind of
Dude, you said that online and I was like, ooh, this is gonna get good.
I'm not giving them an
Well, my problem is.
You wanna come with me and I'll give you
They
a-
want us to get tested. I've already been tested twice this year.
I've been tested once. My thing is, with it is,
I'm not sick, why should I go get
my
tested?
thing is don't like, just throw this situation under the rug and then like bring it up when halfway through the semester, I'm like, oh, by the way, you
So
got,
what
you
are
gotta
they
have it
gonna
done.
do? Torture me
By this
my
year.
last day?
Oh, that's all right, guys. Something I'm very consistent about.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Oh,
Yeah.
you can answer this, he's online.
Yep,
So-
give me just a second. Anthony, I'm gonna talk to this one guy, and then if you wanna just stay on, we can talk right now.
Like, don't ever assume I'm just gonna be like, oh, put me in a position of weakness and cool. But that's not.
Have you ever
Yeah,
heard
and
of
it
from,
can be taken differently, but.
what point of view, a utilitarianism
That's
is not?
not.
What's that?
What kind of point of view are you
It is.
looking
That's
at
leverage
from this one?
against your
Because
education.
Well, look at the stuff on the back of that one sheet.
I understand.
Like there's the ethics of community, the ethics of duty, the ethics of justice are all different ones.
Okay, so, do you want to answer his question online?
Well, I don't know if he needs privacy to ask it.
Oh. Sam, present what you have presented for the option.
Okay, so.
And I understand what he's saying and I agree. However, I just didn't know how you wanted us to present that.
With this dilemma, I don't think there's really a solution that is applicable, because the thing is, this is such a widespread problem, and in the future, it's gonna be industry standard that they do this. And so. no matter what-
I don't agree with that.
Really?
Uh-huh. I think that there's,
Wait, what did you say?
I don't think that it is gonna be a thing where the university does this for every textbook. I really don't.
No, but.
Okay.
Said something different.
Sorry.
So where I see the dilemma is that schools are providing hidden fees or trying to hide fees for the students, and they're responsible for paying that fee.
Okay.
This, I don't think is exclusive to just the books. Like, for example, here at ISU, they have where if you want to be in housing, you have to get a meal plan. The meal plan changes in cost as you go up in seniority. But even at the senior level, you're still paying a far more expensive, you're paying far too much for the meals than what they're actually worth.
Okay.
And the way that they're restricting you and using that meal pass for anything other than the meals exclusively, it's clear that it's dropped in for them. And their main goal is to make money for themselves.
Right.
Understandable. But I think this is going to become a industry standard because just how easy it is to do. And because colleges know that more and more people have to attend college to have careers in the future, they're going to know that they can start charging more and more fees or just standard fees that people are going to have to pay in order to get work. And so they're not
leaving us no option because of.
Hence the concept of captive clients or customers.
Right.
So how would you want that presented?
Well, just because that's a reality doesn't mean you can't argue that they are in violation of an ethical standard.
Right.
You can still make, I mean, these are not necessarily things where I expect you to, well, you wrote this, now go and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, to a degree, these are just ethical arguments because we have those kinds of situations all over the place.
Well,
we have a federal government where they can implement that because of the structure of the Constitution, they can charge whatever tax they deem fit. And unless we replace the representative, they can continue to increase taxes as much as they want to.
Did you say duty of virtue?
Yeah.
Because it's not fair to everybody and you want it to be fair.
We should be as fair as possible, and this doesn't pass the sniff test of being fair or honest.
That's what yeah.
That would be an argument of fairness. It would be an argument of virtue, are totally legitimate. Utilitarian, it could still be a utilitarian in that it is harming because of this process. The benefit to the institution does not outweigh the cost to the larger number of students.
Yeah.
It is not a maximum utility to do. So those are totally legit.
That's what we were discussing was how we could present an option that was open.
You can argue, well, you're not trying to argue that the college is right. You're wanting to argue from the customer perspective.
Right, yeah.
And you can say, here's how they are violating the ethical requirement.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Awesome. I think that was
Even though that might not have an impact for this assignment, that would satisfy.
So like, if we came up with a solution, we could just say, colleges should just be upfront with fees and charge us in tuition. What this would change is absolutely nothing except now
they're still charging.
They're still charging, but at least you have the informed ability to realize what's happening. And then you can participate in things you could participate in student bodies that could push back on this.
Well, and the other option Sam brought up too is just not go.
There are industries where you don't have to. There are industries where you can self-train or you can apprentice and do other alternatives to formal instruction. Absolutely. And some of those jobs are robust enough to support you. And not all of them, but there are. So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Sam, thank you. You brought up such a good answer.
Okay. Anthony, everyone's left. If you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't know if this needed to be a private conversation or not, so I kicked everybody out just in case.
Oh, I mean, it didn't really matter or not, but thank you. One, the Daily Double.
Oh, I will get that squared away, yes.
And secondly, on our midterm papers, I was kind of looking at mine, and then it started to scare me because I was looking at it last night, and it was like 9% of your paper is like copied or something. And so then it said that my paper was sent off to a bunch of different universities. Am I going to get kicked out of college?
Oh, hell no. Oh, no. It basically, what Turnitin does is it will compare your submissions without any identifying information, just the writing itself, against submissions that other people have turned in. But I do not use any of that stuff, and nothing that is sent out to any place else is ever connected to your name or identity.
Okay,
you
because
are-
I was just looking last night.
No, I apologize. No, you are totally good.
Okay, good. Whew. I just got.
I apologize for that. Yeah, and you could have totally sent me that as an email. But yeah, I apologize for that. But basically, what it's just looking for is, I mean, if I was to see something in the realm of 50 to 60%, and I looked at it, and there wasn't a lot of cited material, then I might need to have a conversation. But they're talking like phrases and concepts that show up in a paper. And at 9%, that's not unrealistic that, you know, hundreds and thousands of people are taking ethics courses across the country. And so everyone's going to use the same terms eventually, and that'll pop up. But that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lambert. That just gave me a little bit of a scare.
And I'm sorry about that. No, you are 100% fine.
No, it's okay. It's nothing on you. But I just wanted to clear that up. So thank you.
Yep. No, you're good. And I will post in the chat about who got the Daily Double for today.
Okay, sounds good. See you, Mr. Lambert.
You take care.